Recording for YouTube now. Let's go ahead and get the Facebook Live started and let's get it out. And waiting for it to load. Sometimes it records this part, so I gotta wait for it to give me the notification. And here we go. What's up, fight fans? Welcome to another episode of Stoner versus Stoner. We're pretty much wrapping up the last event that happened for the UFC. Well, what was the date on that? December 19th. That was Stephen Thompson, Wonderboy, as well as Jeff Neal fighting. But also we're going to catch up with my co-host, my compadre, the brains behind the starting of Stoner versus Stoner, Don Stoner. Please introduce yourself, Ren.
What's up, listeners? I'm Don Stoner, Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Been training for about 20 years in the martial arts, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is my specialty. I teach at my school, Lone Wolf Jiu-Jitsu in Washougal, Washington, and compete in Jiu-Jitsu tournaments and Submission Underground, and hopefully next year the Worlds. And I'm hopeful that I'll be competing a lot more in everything that comes up. But just love jiu-jitsu, love MMA.
Oh yeah, and his last name is Stoner. That's why we're called Stoner versus Stoner. You can probably account for why I'm called Stoner as well. My name is Chino LaForge. If you don't know me, I haven't introduced myself again in a while. Might as well do the formalities for any new listeners. My name is Chino LaForge, co-host of Stoner vs. Stoner, stand-up comedian and professional fight enthusiast. I don't know what that means, but I really do love martial arts. I've been training since I was a child, and unfortunately, due to injury, I never got to experience the upper echelons of the leagues. But I forever remain a fan. And as Don has said multiple times, the pursuit, a martial artist pursuit, is lifelong, which is true to fact. I still train here and there, like a lot of our listeners do. I know a lot of our listeners are casual trainers. And Don, you run a jiu-jitsu academy as well as MMA classes, so you understand just how important it is to make sure you keep your skills sharp, no matter the necessity of your skills, how often it's needed or whatnot. It's important to stay in shape and stay tactile. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, try to, if you can, if you're on the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu journey, whether you're a few stripes on your white belt, a blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, and of course a black belt. It's really important to at least train like one day a week if you can, and just try to stay active in the game. And a lot of us, life happens and we don't have the luxury to keep training in the arts. But I feel like if you get the bug, most people will come back to it at some point, and they'll try to continue it. And not everybody is able to train 3 days, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. Like even myself, like in the past, sometimes I was doing 2 a days when I started, 16 to 20, when, I wanted to be a pro MMA fighter, train twice a day, and as well as, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, stand up and whatever else. Then I took a lot of time off, but I still try to train like a day a week or 2 days a week. And then fast forward, it took me until now, 33, when I was able to quit my job and start my school. I was able to rekindle it and go full time again and train every day. And, and that's like a dream for a lot of people. But, one day a week, if you can train, that's amazing. But, when you're in the position to train again, if you're off, definitely do it, man. Definitely find a studio. You want to have, strong mind, strong body, and, your spirit, and, overcoming the challenges on the mat is like so much, man. And I think that we're going to see a huge wave of people coming back to jiu-jitsu when more, people are vaccinated, what have you, and this thing calms down. People hopefully are going to rush to, now, I took so much time off of whatever, let's get back to it, and get back to the arts.
Yes, luckily I've had an opportunity to hit pads every once in a while, or hit a bag, but unfortunately mat work is few and far in between chances. It's hard to do without the risk of exposure. It's not an easy task right now, but like you said, with the vaccines and such, hopefully there is a light at the end of the tunnel soon. I wouldn't mind getting back on the mats again soon. I know I miss it. There's something wonderful about jujitsu where it's the only martial art I've ever trained where you hear people laughing in the room as they're training, and it's not like a laugh like they're messing around. It's a laugh of like mental of a mental sparring. Jiu-jitsu is such a cerebral sport as well as a physical one that you can't help but laugh at what happens with the body when you have these in the second decisions to counter, to move, to counterweight, to push off, to hold on to create space or to take it away. And the positions you end up in sometimes get a little wonky, and it's just a good time when you end up training with really good people. You can't help but laugh at a couple things, and that's something that's totally unique. You don't go to a lot of Muay Thai academies and hear a lot of giggling going on.
You don't. Yeah, it's a lot more like aggression. It's a lot more like when you're weightlifting, you're like, whoosh, and you're kind of doing that same thing. But any art that you practice, you get some of that. Like there was times when like I didn't have a studio to train at, and so I would go to the park and like hit pads with my buddy, like you're saying, or hit a bag. Just keep going, and just work the fundamentals. And when you restart in jiu-jitsu, if you have a certain game that you like, maybe you like arm bars, or you like to play guard, or you like to guard pass. When you restart, just go ahead and just kind of remember jiu-jitsu, kind of start slow and just expect that you're going to get pummeled for the first couple months until you can get some wind, because without cardio, you're not going to be able to pull off anything in training. And, just accept that, and like you said, laugh about it. And, I wasted so much time being like so competitive, with everybody. And, that it's not as fun that way, now I just like laugh and, I laugh when someone has me a choke. I'm like, there's no way you're going to get this, and we just laugh together. We tell jokes, and that's what it's about, man. It's that camaraderie that, especially now, a lot of us don't have in that, intimate setting where you're with your buds and you're going past all these different challenges and you're doing it together. It's so awesome.
Absolutely. And there's something that happens to you after you've tapped out about 500 times, just in life, like just in humbleness, just in understanding of gravity, like what it means to truly be better, to have somebody that's better than you at something, and to learn from them and to walk away from it. And I don't mean tapping other people out. I mean times that you've had to tap. Of course, the first 10 are probably the hardest to do for some people, because they don't understand the give and take of jiu-jitsu or martial arts in general. It's like those old kung fu movies where you walk into, a student walks into a dojo thinking they're tough, and they get their ass handed to them. And if they come back to that dojo, the world unlocks to them, but only if they're able to break down. Jiu-jitsu kind of forces that in high speed. There is no grading curve or learning curve in jiu-jitsu. If you do not know what you're doing, people literally have to alter the way they do jiu-jitsu to teach you as you roll. Otherwise, what are they going to do? Just tap you out in a couple seconds every 5 seconds? Like, for what? And nobody learns that way. Jiu-jitsu is just such an incredible art where people at the very beginning of the foundation can still learn from people at the near the top, and even still vice versa. I'm sure you gain a lot by brushing over the techniques that you've trained over so many times. There's nothing wrong with rereading those chapters and getting insight on the moves that you're already proficient in. It tightens everything up. Nothing wrong with doing some maintenance on the ship.
Yeah, it's just forever learning. And like this past weekend, I had a match with a really good guy, Eddie Bravo black belt, one of first Eddie Bravo's black belts. And over time he got me an armbar, right? And so now it's like I have to practice the armbar, fundamental move, but not often are people able to get me in arm bars in training, because they, maybe they can't mount me very easily, or I just hardly ever get in the arm bar position because I know how to tuck my arms and stuff. And in this rule set, you start in the arm bar. So now I go back and I say, well, it's time to relearn the arm bar and go over the escapes again. Same thing happened to me with the triangle choke. And you just keep fine tuning it. And there, in every single class, in every single sparring session, there's something that you can pick out and say, I want to work on this. And it's just that forever learning mindset that is really, really helpful in jiu-jitsu, and it humbles you too. Like you said, like some of my students, they pull out my lapel and they start throwing around my neck, doing some crazy stuff. And sometimes it works. I'm like, dude, how'd you do that? And we go over it. And this is somebody who's been training for 1 or 2 years.
And they learned it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yep. I've had it happen to me a couple times too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's like we just keep learning, man. We just keep learning, and we do it together. And but really, for me, it's adversity that we overcome on the daily in jiu-jitsu that really helps us to where we're just so comfortable in those terrible, uncomfortable positions that now that becomes like a drug in a way. For me, it's like other things in my life, I want to experience that. It's like, what am I super afraid of that I really want to avoid? How can I put myself there so I don't freak out and panic there? The same way that a new person panics underneath side control, underneath a guy, the same panic. You want to overcome that over and over and over again. So many lessons.
By the way, I do want to say you had a great match at Submission Underground. It was a lot of fun to watch. Great opening round. You did a great job of neutralizing the rubber guard. You stacked on his hips, made sure that he didn't establish the bottom foot on any hip or any type of point of leverage. You made sure he never got any angles. You defended the rubber guard flawlessly. That's exactly how you want to kind of crash on a 10th Planet jiu-jitsu roller. I think that needs to be said before you even discuss anything about the overtime. I think it needs to be said how good of a job you did in neutralizing his forward movement. But at the same token, I guess it could be said the same thing by trying to work the rubber guard. I guess he would kind of neutralize your forward movement as well. But you did a great job of making sure you didn't establish anything stinky. Anytime you tried to grab ground mission control, you were able to ward it off. Anytime you tried to get any pressure on a hip, you pushed through it almost to half guard. Really good move. You've always, from what I've seen from your footage, you're always a heavy roller. You kind of roll similarly to like I can't believe I'm forgetting it. Jake Shields. Yeah, you kind of remind me a little bit of Jake Shields with your heavy hips and the way that you're able to secure legs and keep people pinned. You're very methodical. So you did a great job using your wheelhouse against a 10th Planet wheelhouse, which is wonky. It's a very hard group of people to grapple because of how unique the style is and how signature it is. It's so specific that you literally have to create defenses for that style specifically. So before we move on, I just wanted to say congrats on that. You looked good. Anybody who watched that who's jiu-jitsu proficient was impressed.
Well, thanks, man. I got some really good compliments on that from hardcores that understand what was going on. I feel like I basically won almost every second of that match up until the second that I lost and got armbarred, right? I tied him up. I was heavy on his head, and that's what I was really trying to do with the Muay Thai clinch, is where some guys have really had some success in jiu-jitsu with the Muay Thai clinch, because jiu-jitsu guys don't know how to get out of that, and it just tires the heck out of you when the guy's hanging on your head. Mm-hmm. So in the first 2 minutes, he was winded, and then I got on top of him. He started rubber guard. I kept my forehead. Kept getting him against the cage, and I was really grinding him against the cage, and he was just literally spent. So the things that people don't see from the outside is like how tired he was and how much energy I had. That was the first time going into overtime where I was just like, I'm going to like just dominate overtime, because I felt like I didn't even do anything. I was just heavy on him the whole time, neutralizing him. And with guys that are that good, it's, it's very hard to do, right? Like he would tie up, 99.9% of jujitsu athletes in the rubber guard and get him an omoplata or gogo plata or an arm lock that he has. But I was able to stop it. But, as being an artist with, all artists, we're like, thank you for saying that we're like this artist, but we want to be our own. Right. And
Right.
I feel like 2021 for me is going to be changing my style up. The way that I train is like, I never stop attacking. I'm so free when I train, and no one, and I just submit everybody, almost everybody, my training partners submit me too, but it's not what you see on TV.
I assume. That's why I said based on your film, because honestly, that's all that I have. And being a martial arts analyzer, I guess I am now after this year of work that we've been doing. I can't help but watch your matches with the same binoculars and put it under the same scope. And when you see patterns, maybe me saying something will even aid further in finding your style. So, and I don't mean to say that you're in any means a replication, just reminiscent with the way of your hip balance and the way that you're able to tie up legs. And yeah, like you said, I noticed those things with the rubber guard. And I know I'm just kind of baby talking compared to many of the, proficient black belts of jiu-jitsu, but I did notice those small movements. Anytime he tried any of the forward movements from rubber guard, you had something for that counterbalance. Like anytime he tried to secure on that leg with mission control, you turn just a small degree to make sure that it wedged out. Or like you said, you work the cage a lot, real smart jiu-jitsu. And I'm sure to the people who aren't really sure what they saw you on top, which looks like winning. And the people who know what they're watching, they're like, oh yeah, no, that's a great way to go about it. Yeah. It was a great match, like you said, up until that sneaky armbar, which you actually didn't do a bad job of escaping. He's just such a long-bodied opponent that he was able to kind of pull it from a weird angle. I noticed that you were already kind of three-quarter turned, and he managed to just extend his length on you.
He was able to pluck the armbar out. I'm working on defenses like Donald Cerrone kept getting out of RDA's armbar. He'd let it get extended and then jump over the body. But when you're going with guys that are pure jiu-jitsu, pure submission only, there's a different grip that they have on submissions than MMA guys. Not always, but I felt that in his armbar, that it was very different. But this was on 5 days notice. The last one was on 3 days notice. So I've just been filling in, I've been filling in for everybody. So I'm hoping I'll get more opportunities. And the next time I've been told I'll get somebody who I'll have time to prepare for, which will be nice. But in any case, I'll keep competing, and, it's just the individual journey on, just trying to get a little bit better every day and really soul searching. And that's what I love about it. It's like, the victories and everything are awesome, but like the guy, the way he celebrated, he's jumping up and down like it's the biggest win in his life to beat me. And for me, I can't say that I wouldn't celebrate like that, but it's not, for me, it's not about that.
I didn't want to say it, but it annoyed me. It annoyed me how he was gloating about it and wasn't a sportsman. But that's reflecting on the teacher. I think that there needs to be. I've always thought that there is kind of a discipline issue with 10th Planet grapplers, just because they're so open-minded and so free and so kind of kumbaya about it. Yeah, that's great, but there really isn't a heavy discipline structure. And it shows. That's just one of the places it shows. I mean, you do have martial artists in the group that do have discipline, but those types of things, you really like to see a handshake in a good match.
Well, yeah, and for me, it's like, actually, he's a school owner too. He has students too, but for me, it's like I came to the realization of, people are watching, and that's not the way I want my kids to see me, rip my shirt off and scream and start flexing like Hulk Hogan over one jujitsu match. For me, it's just not anything. I was calm and cool. I was hanging out in the cage. Like I felt so relaxed in there that I just want to build off of the good things I did. And the next time I meet him, I'm just going to play to his lack of conditioning and his lack of discipline and catch him early.
Yep.
In 5, because I really think I could have caught him in 5. I think I could have caught him in that first 2, but I was just so happy to see his gas tank going down. I'm like, how much more can I wear on him before he just gives me something stupid?
Right.
And I think it was close.
The classic oyster versus starfish method. You just keep pulling on the shell until the muscle gives up.
I had a moment where I retook his back 3 different times, and then the cameras for Sug are you cannot see what's happening a lot of times. But I had his back and I threw like a punch and I hit his nose really hard, and he's like, ah, and then I got the face crank, and that was super, super close face crank submission that I almost got in there. And I've been looking at Mason Fowler. He does the same thing. So I want to work on that one a little more. Just crank, because, anything under the eyebrows is legal for RNC. Right. You get the guy on the eyebrow.
Really arch into it and make no friends with it. Yeah. Greco-Roman style too.
Yeah.
Make sure you get that gable grip too. Keep it nice and strong. All right. You know what? We ate up enough time since we don't have future fights to really talk about yet. So let's go ahead and talk about the event that we saw on December 19th. It feels like it was ages ago, but they're great fights, so they're still fresh in my memory. Let's start with the first fight that we chose: Anthony Pettis versus Alex Morono, which was the main card of the prelims, the main event of the prelims. I believe you had Morono. I had Pettis in that one. Pettis was able to pull it off, looking like a G. He had a great fight, a great swan song for his career in the UFC, because he is no longer a UFC fighter, but now a PFL fighter. Recently, he ended his that was the last fight in his contract, and instead of hanging around to see if he was a part of the 60-fighter cut, he just gracefully bowed out and said, "Thank you so much, UFC. It's been a fantastic 13 years. We've done amazing things together. I'm gonna go try out my odds with other contracts." And lo and behold, PFL picked him up nearly immediately, and he's in the chase for the $1 million race. What do you think about that move? What do you think about the call? What do you think about the fight? What do you think, Don?
Surprising that Showtime picked PFL. I was thinking more Bellator. There were some really good matches in Bellator for him, but maybe PFL is kind of the road less traveled, something to really make his name off again, and kind of resurge and win $1 million against guys that maybe aren't at that top tier. But from what I've seen from PFL, they have a lot of Dagestani fighters. They have a lot of up and comers that are dangerous for guys with a name to go in and fight. Maybe the general public doesn't know who some of these guys are. For instance, the Brazilian champion who won the PFL tournament last year, Thomas, can't remember his name, but the guy's a savage. He went through multiple UFC fighters, and so Showtime's going to have to fight him. And so it's interesting. I don't trust PFL's business model, really. I don't. They've spent so much money from WSOF to now PFL. They've just dumped all this money into the production, the show, the fighters. They paid their fighters very well, but nobody really watches the fights. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how can they run that business?
Yeah, it's hard, and I think that's actually part of the big UFC lawsuit. I looked into it a little bit more, and it seems to be a monopoly case where they believe that the UFC has been trying to monopolize the business at its upper echelons, and a lot of people believe that that's the reason why they had a 60-fighter cut to kind of distribute the talent amongst the bottom rungs of competitors. They were running a ridiculous amount of fighters contracts. They had a stupid amount of people on the UFC roster, having people connected to 5-fight contracts that they had no plans of ever fulfilling, until now they have the opportunity to kind of clean house, do this lawsuit, and it gives all these organizations opportunities to have some better talent. I think we're going to be looking at something kind of like what boxing does with the IBF and the different federations that they have. Who knows if they'll be of equal talent, kind of like the way it is now for boxing, where you know, to be a true champ, you have to kind of unify it. But I think it might make for better business too. I think we might be able to see some more from leagues like PFL and Bellator now that they have some top tier talent coming their way. Not saying that they don't have top tier talent, it's just that they're developing top tier talent. And it's really different to be in the developmental stage versus the showcasing stage. Showcasing stage is where the money's at. Developmental stage is where the recognition's at. And if you want both, you got to have both. And it looks like all the leagues are going to have a combination of both. So I see this being good for business in all ways. I see it being good for MMA when it comes to broadcastability, like how PFL is kind of inaccessible a little bit to a lot of people because they just don't know about it. That's going to change. Bellator becoming a household name in 2021, not comparable to UFC, mind you, but I definitely see Bellator being a name that a lot more people know about by the end of 2021. When we're having this conversation a year from now, I think we will be talking about how much Bellator has grown. And I also think we'll be breaking down Bellator fights as well as UFC.
Yeah.
Maybe some fight screens.
Yeah, man. And it's the same thing of, you know, right now the UFC is bringing in so many fans. Those fans need time to evolve into hardcores, and then they're going to be, thirsty for more fights and more matchups. Then they realize Bellator, right? I mean, for years I didn't watch Bellator while they were in that developmental stage, like you said, like where PFL is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started being like, man, I want to see the top guys at Bellator. And then I started seeing guys at Bellator that I felt like could give a run against guys from the UFC. And like you said, 2021 should be a big year for Bellator because they're bringing in, so much talent from the UFC. They already have their own talent that they've really fostered. That talent that they have, in their, what they want to happen is to beat the guys from the UFC. And, and then that's how kind of it goes. But the UFC, the whole monopoly thing, and, there's a lot of disgruntled fighters in the beginning of UFC. A guy, Nate Corey, who kind of spearheaded this lawsuit. I think Jake Shields is pretty involved in the lawsuit. Some really good guys that weren't getting the money. They weren't getting the split. But that was a company that was just trying to make a profit. I think that if you talk to the fighters now that are signed, it's a lot different story than before.
Mm-hmm.
I think the average fighter makes around 100,000 a year. And as they start getting the rankings, they're making more and more and more. Boxing, we don't want UFC and MMA to be like boxing because UFC has transcended boxing, and there's a reason for that. All the work that UFC put in that, and cross promotions, it's really hard because Dana White's not good at negotiating with any other business owner. He's great at negotiating with his own fighters. But when you bring Scott Coker to the table, all of a sudden he's threatened. Bring Ray Sefo, the guy from PFL, to the table, he's threatened, and he doesn't want to cross promote that. So they'd rather just, get the best years out of the racing horse and then go ahead and retire him to the pasture. And the pasture is these other organizations.
Yeah, but now we have a reason to watch these other organizations. So this is going to be an interesting year. Whether Dana White likes it or not, he is going to get competition. But it's not going to be very competitive yet. It's going to take years for them to build their brand. The UFC is going to have to do something to mess up their credibility in order for any change of hands of power to happen in any way. I think we're still years away from any type of rivalry that's actually on par between Bellator, UFC, and PFL for years. That's just business building. But we do now have a reason to watch Bellator, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get like a renewal or a network contract that kind of blows them into the stratosphere the way that Spike TV was able to do for the UFC.
Yeah.
It's not unheard of. So that was a great fight. It was a fun one to watch. Going back to Anthony Pettis and Alex Morano. Pettis put on a display with the striking. Great percentages. That's something that really stood out, was just how many times Pettis hit him. And his rate of fire was not usual Pettis numbers, but out of 80 thrown, he hit him 50 times. That's like ridiculous. That type of strike accuracy is off the charts. You know, maybe you see a first round that's a 60% round, or you know, maybe see a third round where the fighter hits the flow and turns it up and gets a 60% round in the third. I don't think I've ever seen a fight that was 60% land rate that made it to full decision. That's pretty incredible.
That's amazing. Shout out to Stephen Page watching. He is one of the longtime Stoner vs. Stoner fans.
Stephen Page.
Stephen Page is a martial artist himself, longtime karate black belt and Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. My good brother. Yeah, Pettis fight. He just landed on him. It was a winnable fight for Pettis. He should have won that fight. Alex Moreno is somewhat of a punching bag. When the last time that I've seen him, he just kind of comes forward and I think Pettis just, you know, he just knows that type of game plan. He's like, there's nothing that Alex Moreno had for him. You know, Alex, I think he should have been able to finish Alex Moreno, but Alex Moreno is so durable that he couldn't put him away. It was good to see Pettis open up with like some wheel kicks and some funky stuff. You could tell he was like really flowing in there. Mm-hmm. And so it was a fun fight to watch for sure.
Yeah. A lot of people say how reckless Pettis can be, but I don't think a lot of people talk about how smart Pettis can be. I think his fighter IQ is through the roof. Perhaps might be one of the smartest game planners for fighters in the UFC. I mean, previously in the UFC, it's hard to speak past tense like a friend died. You know, let's not forget he came up with that strategy. Him and his coach came up with that strategy against Wonderboy Thompson when they met, and he was able to get the W out of him by destroying that back leg of his. Brilliant. Very few people think to attack the back leg. That's really a Muay Thai tactic that's used for people who are, you know, headhunters. It's a good way to chop the tree down. You know, the same way that you can use the power kick to load up on their right hand for blocking and to wear down their forearm. You can do the same to their back power leg, and they lose power in their high kick strikes. But he was doing it to take down his lateral movement. It's smart. We'll get back to that later when we talk about Stephen Thompson's fight. Fight after that, we had Marcin Tybura versus Greg Hardy, which I got wrong. I called Greg, much to my chagrin. I didn't want to do that. I didn't like calling the fight, but you called it for Marcin, and you got it right. And I couldn't be happier. This is probably the happiest I've ever been about being wrong in my life. I can't think of a time that I'd rather be more wrong. Greg Hardy satisfyingly got knocked out in the second round after just being completely blanketed by of the better fighter, the more talented martial artist, and possibly, I would say, rising fighter of the year prospect, Marcin Tybura. Had some big W's this year. This one wasn't short. It literally happened the way that we described it too. Greg Hardy came out strong, threw some combinations. Tybura hung in there with him because he's a real fighter. Greg Hardy got tired. First round ends. He can't hit his inhaler. Second round starts. Have you noticed that his gas tank has dropped significantly since he stopped cheating?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what cheating looks like, folks. If you don't know what cheating looked like before and why it's considered cheating and why it does give a fighter an advantage, there you go. If the inhaler was legal, every fighter would be in the round with an albuterol can sitting right next to him, and they'd be ready to puff that thing harder than Snoop Dogg pre-fight for Mike Tyson. But you know, rules are rules, and I don't even think an inhaler could have saved him on this one, to be honest. Tybura had his number. He was counting his steps. He always had the outside angle. Greg Hardy looked like a fish out of water against Tybura. He was just fought by an actual martial artist finally. And you know, the people he's fought, I'm not going to say they're chumps. They're not just like tomatoes, but you know, they were specialists. A lot of them were, you know, a wrestler or nobody dangerous. You know, there's a jiu-jitsu artist in there, but nobody with any heavy hands or anybody that could test him. Tibur was the perfect test for him, and he failed. He failed the test, and I love it. What do you think, Doug?
Just step by step, what basically what you said, man. Just echoing what you said. You know, if Greg Hardy can't knock you out, he gets really gassed. His heart goes down. You know, he loses faith that he can finish the fight, and he's still in that kind of panic state when he gets tired. And so I just look for somebody who can take his shots and or deflect his shots, right? Because he did land some good blows in the first round that have finished lesser opponents. But Tibura's, you know, he's just able to move out just enough to get Greg Hardy to really wind up and throw those haymakers. So I think I thought it would be a submission because you clearly saw that Greg Hardy has no jiu-jitsu, or he does, and he just doesn't have the gas tank to do anything on the ground. But you know, more I'm seeing of Greg Hardy, it's kind of like a Derek Lewis thing where like he does have that second win. Even when he's tired, he still throws those heavy haymakers. And so he's, you know, he's shown that he's, you know, he's definitely smart in there, and he definitely can catch you at any moment, even when he's tired. So he's very dangerous. But he just needs more cardio. He needs more, you know, he just needs more time in the sport. I mean, for a guy with the time that he has in the sport, I think that's, you know, very, very impressive that he's able to fight the top level opponents that he fights.
Make no mistake, he is a top level athlete. He was a professional football player before he was a professional fighter. So my dislike of him is extremely personal. It has nothing to do with his physical abilities or his God-given talents or the talents that he's trained. Kudos to him for being an all-star athlete. There's no debate there. The guy's a freak of nature. But what I don't like about him is that there's quit in him. In football, you can take a little break in between plays, and maybe he's a little pace to that. What I saw against Marcin Tybura is that there's quit in him. He didn't get knocked out. He wasn't unconscious. He wasn't separated from his senses. He literally stopped defending himself. That's what I saw. And that's why he'll never be a top 10 competitor. I have a feeling that the UFC might cut him. I think he might be one of the 60 fighters that get the chop. If he's not, I don't think the UFC is going to put so much power behind him, because we know how Dana White feels about people who quit in a fight. He hates that shit. Nothing gets him more furious. And I can't imagine that he didn't see the same thing I did, because he's a person of emotion. I'm sure he got kind of pissed off when he saw that end of the fight, because I know how happy I was to see it. Anyway.
Yeah. And, you know, I do disagree with you on his future. I think he has a future in the UFC. He just needs more. He just needs to go through adversity more. He needs more conditioning, and he just needs to work on the things that are obvious holes in his game, you know, because his rise has been pretty meteoric if you think about it. And, you know, after the couple big wins that he had kind of on that lower tier level, you know, he had impressive wins against guys that weren't ranked. And then he called out a ranked opponent. You know, he said, hey, yeah, I want someone who's top 10, and be careful what you wish for if you're not at that level yet, because there are clear levels. But being the knockout guy that he can knock out a lot of guys. For Marcin, though, I'd like to see Marcin against Derek Lewis. I'd like to see him fight Derek Lewis's next fight. That would be good, because I think that he could implement a similar game plan with Derek.
Yeah, I think that's a great fight to make. That Marcin Tybura is a dog. He's a total package. I think he will only get better, and he'll only get more dangerous as his career goes on, because he's a young guy, and he's swimming in a sea of sharks. And here's why I say this about Greg Hardy never cracking into the top 10. I can't stress enough. I know he's a top tier athlete. I'm not trying to knock that, but does he have that dog in him that you need to be in the top 10? Let me just list real quick the top 10 of the heavyweight. Alexei Olnik, he's not beating him. Junior Dos Santos, no matter how bad Junior gets, he's not beating him. Alexander Volkov, Derek Lewis, Cyril Gain, Alistair Overeem, Rosenstruck, Curtis Blades, Nagano, Stipe Miocic. In any of those lists of names in the next decade, do you see Greg Hardy getting enough skill to defeat?
Oh, for sure.
Really?
For sure. Yes. Oh, yes. He just needs to humble himself and learn the different arts, because a guy like that, he's only has so much time. And so he's only been able to develop really his stand-up, but he's standing up with the best in the world now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get some wrestling defense, you get some submissions, and you work on the gas tank. And I think Greg Hardy can do it. I think that Greg Hardy can do it. When you list those guys, it doesn't look good for him, right? But that's right now. I think that if he just keeps learning, he can do it. He does strike me as a guy who's kind of like doubles down on his strengths.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if his coaches are really, hammering him on all the different skills that he needs to learn. But I could see him do it. I think your boy Greg Hardy, man, he might come out 2021 and get a big win, brother.
I couldn't disagree more, and I'm so happy that we don't see eye to eye on this, because this will just be fuel for the fodder later on. I'm regardless of how well he does or doesn't do, I'm excited to see it. I can't stress enough. I'm a fight fan before I dislike anybody, and I'm a big fan that Greg Hardy's in the sport. It brings controversy, it brings attention. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's all good things. I don't mean to just sound negative, but I'm a bit of a shit stirrer, so I can't help it. Fight after that, we had Marlon Moraes versus Rob Font, which didn't play out the way that we expected whatsoever. Did you call Rob? Or I think we both called Moraes,
both
right?
called Marlon, yeah.
Yeah. So, first of all, wow. Holy shit. Rob, dude, wow. Dynamite in the fist, huh? That guy's got some power. He hit him hard. But Moraes is no stranger to going to sleep these days. That's his, third knockout in a row? He's been knocked out 3 times in a row. Yep. Somebody needs to give that dude a CAT scan. Maybe give him a break for a little bit. Put it on ice for a minute. He had a real hot 2019. One of the hottest years for any fighter that any fighter can have. And then it just really didn't pan out. Once he lost the championship fight, he lost the contender spot. And then it's been a slippery slope for him. What do you think is his next move?
Man, it looks like Marlon is a type of guy that has already peaked. And I think he was peaking right when he got signed to the UFC, because like you said, those are the years, 2018, 2019, he burst on the scene. I think he had 1 L when he first got to UFC against like Rafael Assunção, and then he just starched everybody else. Mm-hmm. But previous to being signed to the UFC, he's already had multiple 5-round wars and World Series of Fighting. He was the best guy that they had. And the UFC really didn't have a deep 135-pound division that they do today. I hope the same thing doesn't happen to Michael Chandler, where a guy spends so long in another organization winning. And even if the guys aren't at the highest level every fight that they win, it just takes a toll, man. Like you said, how many times can you go through the wars, and Marlon has that Muay Thai style where he takes a lot of damage. He gives a lot of damage, but he takes a lot of damage. Yeah. And so I think Marlon might have one fight, maybe 2 in the UFC, but I think he's already hit his peak. That 2019 was probably his best year, his best chance to get the title. And I think he's pretty spent, after that Jose Aldo fight. That was kind of where I looked at it and went, man, maybe he's going down a bit. But yeah, so I could, it's good. Maybe Bellator, you know, PFL, he's already done World Series of Fighting, and then that's kind of the same organization, same management and everything. So I think most likely he'd go to Bellator. Maybe he'll go to Japan. And he could just surprise us. He could surprise us all and come out hot. But it looks like he's already kind of hit that peak, man. And you know, but no discredit to Rob Font. I forgot how good Rob Font was with his stand up and his boxing skills. That's a guy who doesn't have a ton of mileage, but now is kind of hitting his peak against a guy who's kind of over his peak. And you saw what happened, you know, when they both connect, they both trade shots. That's the one who is younger, hungrier, and wants to make the name that's going to come off that. And the one who's not as chinny is the one that's going to stay standing after you two trade your hardest shots, you know?
Right. And I don't think we've seen Rob Font fight since coronavirus started, have we? I think that was his first one since the whole thing started, right?
Yeah. Well, he lost to Pedro Munoz. He beat Ricky Simone. That's where I was like, whoa, this guy's the real deal. And then he had another win against a really good guy. And now this win against Marlon.
Yes.
So, and I'd have to check his record, but I those fights stick out to me as his biggest, his fights to date.
Let's see. So his most recent ones were, the last time he fought before the Marlon Moraes fight was literally a year previous, December 7th on 2019 on the Overeem Rosenstruck card. And that was against Ricky Simon. And before that, he beat the younger Pettis, Sergio Pettis.
That's right. He kicked, and then that was Sergio's last fight in the UFC, in Bellator.
Yeah. I mean, he's declarated. We haven't seen him in a while. I mean, to be honest, by not dissecting any of his fights, I don't think I've really had a chance to fall in love with his style other than just watching it with my friends. So I look forward to seeing even more performances from him because I was super impressed with what he threw out there. Oh man, what a great fight for him. For the highlight reel, excellent stuff. Fight after that was Chaos Williams and Mitchell Pereira. You had Pereira, I had Chaos. Didn't pan out the way I thought it would. Chaos was looking for the big shot. Pereira saw that he was looking for that big shot, never gave it to him. Fantastic footwork, great cage cornering. He kept him on his back foot the entire time, so he never really gave him a chance to load up on that power hand. Really just smart fighting. He knew exactly how to go against a bruiser. The last time Chaos fought somebody, they were trying to implement the same strategy as Chaos, which is, you know, fighting rock with rock. It's not going to work. He just brought paper and beat him in the classic game. You know, when you're going two movable objects against each other, it's just the one that's stronger that's going to win. But when you play the match of intelligence, it's always the person who has more tools in their disposal. And Chaos, as talented as he is, it doesn't look like he's as well-rounded as he could be. And perhaps it's a good opportunity for him to study some film and really build his style further. What did you see in that fight, Don?
Michel Pereira fought a great fight. It was a really exciting fight. You know, Pereira is so dynamic and he has great movement. I felt like he was as strong as Chaos. So kind of my concern was him going in with Chaos power versus power. And he decided to kind of, like you said, you know, kind of play a different strategy, you know, really good kicks, really good movement, got out of the power. And you know, with guys who come off big knockouts and who are fairly new, you always want to see them tested. And that was Chaos's test. Because I mean, Chaos is, what is it, his second fight in the UFC, maybe third?
Yeah, I think that was his third. Yeah.
And so Pereira's beat Diego Sanchez. Pereira's had like so many awesome knockouts, so many great fights. So Chaos just needs more tools in the toolbox, man. And but I felt like the UFC, that was a big test the UFC put in front of him.
Oh yeah, sure. They threw him to the dogs with this fight. They were like, "Oh, okay, nice knockout. Here you go." And they kind of were trying to do the same thing with Khamzat, which unfortunately his fight is being pushed back again. First, Leon Edwards got coronavirus. Now Hamzat got coronavirus. It's looking like it's being pushed back February, maybe as late as March, which takes away from some of the Fight Island events. But they're fixing it out. They're sorting. They're figuring it out. But yeah, no, very similar situations. You're like, oh, okay, you want to get a few knockouts? Well, let's put you against a contender. I mean, Hamzat had what 2-3 knockouts, and next thing you know, they're putting him against a top 5 opponent. That's crazy, but that's because he beat Gerard Meerschaert. So if Chaos would have passed this test, who knows who they would have thrown to him next. But he's young talent. He didn't get it yet. Keep on fighting, bro. You got a good future ahead, a great future ahead of you. I know he's already got a fan base starting up too. So, you know, Chaos is making the right moves for the right age. He just needs to keep building. Like you said, like I said, he's in the right spot at the right time. He just needs to keep working.
What I like to see when I look for a contender is their first fight, they fight against a really, really, really tough guy.
Mm-hmm.
Win or loss, they keep going. You know, they get the cobwebs out early, is what I'm trying to say. You saw it with Kevin Holland. His first fight in the UFC was against Thiago Santos, right? Against Maheta. And he lost. He got beat down by Thiago Santos. And then he goes on an absolute tear and destroys everybody and fights 4 times. That's personally what I look for in a prospect, not someone like Hamzat who's fought 3 guys in a short time and beat them all decisively, guys that aren't top tier guys. You just don't know. I mean, it's just it's just a guess basically. Well, he could be amazing because these performances, who's he fought, you know? So I was hoping to see Leon Edwards versus Hamzat, you know, and Hamzat's one of those guys that you know, most likely could be the real deal that we're all looking for and touting for. But now the UFC brings on, you know, Buckley. They're talking about Buckley. They're talking about Chaos Williams. You know, they're trying to push all these people on us, and those guys haven't fought anybody yet. So we saw with Chaos, you know, we saw Buckley got taken out. And I think the same thing's going to happen to Hamzat if he fights Leon Edwards or whoever all, unless it's Jake Paul. For sure, he'll knock that guy out.
Right. Well, and let's be real here. Even to make it to the level where you fight Leon Edwards in the UFC, your fighting career is a success. So at the very baseline, he'll be able to say, I fought a top 5 fighter. So that's pretty amazing. I mean, once you make it to fighting somebody in the top 5, I would say, yes, you're one of the best 100 martial artists on the planet. Just even get to that opportunity. So,
but you see now he's like, it's different, right? Because now he's fighting Leon Edwards. So he's like, he has to be 100%, you know, don't get me wrong about everything he's going through. I definitely think that that's the real reasons why he can't fight. But for a guy who's fought back to back, like who's just like the next week, let me get the next opponent.
A smish.
Yeah. But now I smashed the next guy, you know, the next week, or, you know, he wants to fight another guy the same night. That's not the same person who's with Leon Edwards is like, oh, I'm not feeling 100. I don't want to take this fight, because he takes it seriously, and his camp knows, look, you have to be the best of the best to fight the best of the best.
Well, it's nice to see that he has that type of gauge for talent, because he didn't have that type of respect with Meerschaert. So it's nice to see that when the higher up in the list is getting, the more respect he's showing. So, you know.
For sure. Yeah. But there's a reason why, you know, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson fights his opponent he just fought. There's a reason why he doesn't ask to fight the next week, because he gets beat up every single fight, because the guys are at such a high level. You can't ask for a fight next week because your body's not going to be good for a month, 2 months, 3 months.
Oh yeah. I can't stress enough to our viewers that when 2 really good fighters fight each other, sometimes they make each other look like not a great fighter. And it's like when you have 2 amazing basketball teams playing against each other, and it's a low scoring game for some reason. It's because they're playing at such a crazy level that it ends up looking kind of sloppy or dirty sometimes. You know, that's why some of these wars, you know, that you expect between these 2 tacticians get kind of jumbled up in the clinch and get dirty and gritty. is because sometimes it's what you need to do to progress the fight and to push it into one side favor. It's not a perfect science. It's not a perfect art. And that's why we enjoy it. If it's perfect, we'd watch two computers do it. So we had Jose Aldo versus Marlon Vera. The fight after that, Chito Vera. Great fight. Great fight. I had Aldo. Did you have Vera on that?
Can't remember.
I think he picked Vera. I'm not sure. I think we're just gonna go ahead and throw November, December away. We'll start fresh 2021. We'll keep a more serious calendar track so that our viewers can get a better idea of who to go with if they're playing with money. But Jose Aldo, man, just really showing tinges of vintage Aldo with some new talents and some new tools in the box. Did you enjoy what you saw with that fight? Was that a fun one for you?
Yeah. Oh man, that was vintage Jose Aldo, man. That was vintage Jose Aldo, and it shows the experience that Aldo has. You know, it shows what he's able to do in there with guys like Marlon Vera, who is an absolute warrior. He fights all the time. He took away Sugar Sean's, rise.
He took his L card.
Yeah, he gave him an L, and Jose won that. Did he was that a KO?
I'm pretty sure. No, it went to decision, but it was a pretty dominant decision. He pretty much beat him up for the most part. I mean, Vera did his best, but that was the first time in a while I've seen Jose really outpace somebody like he did in the old ways. Just harder pace and a faster speed. He looked quick out there. That was the fastest I've seen him be in a while. It must have been good nutrition leading up to the end of the fight, beginning of the fight. It must have been a good weight cut. I'm guessing he probably had a little more time to prepare for this. It's a deep cut for him to get to this weight for in this class, but it looked like he came out healthy, and his knees were just as dangerous as ever. Man, that left cross he fires is so just fast. The way he's able to close the distance with that is just incredible. The speed he fights at is still something to behold. And he wants to make another run at the title. So, Jose Aldo with the fire in his eyes. I like seeing it. I want to see Aldo with the belt around his waist one more time. You think he's got the chance?
Man, he had a war with Marlon Moraes that we're talking about earlier. And, now we saw where Marlon is. And that was a tough fight for Jose. Jose can beat anybody that obviously is not as fast as him, doesn't have the toolbox as him. He has such an IQ. He's such a master in there that certain styles like Marlon Vera, even, years from now, I feel like Jose can beat like a Marlon Vera. But when you look at some of the guys like Corey Sandhagen, who's at the top now, you look at, the champ. One fight I would think that would be kind of cool to see would be Jose against Dominic Cruz. That'd be a really good fight. Two guys that kind of from the same WEC, they came up together. That'd be kind of a cool fight. I don't know if Jose has it in him for another title run, but definitely some interesting fights to make with Jose.
Yeah, after that W, it really puts him in a good spot as far as making a claim for a contender fight. And that pretty much just puts him 2 fights away or a fight and a half away from the belt. So wouldn't mind seeing those opportunities come up for him. He deserves it in the twilight of his career. And the last fight of the night, Stephen Thompson versus Jeff Neal. I've got a great breakdown for this. I'd like you to start with this, Don, just so I don't want to talk over you in any way. Please. What did you see this night?
Man, it was just, what I saw was just Wonder Boy again in vintage Wonder Boy fashion. Wonder Boy's, he has a real fire that he fights with when a guy is trying to make their name off of him. I haven't seen him lose those fights. We see him lose, against Tyron Woodley and some guys that were kind of hitting the top with him. You know, I think he has respect for guys so much that it's a hindrance to him at the highest level, like championship fights. You know, it's a mental thing with him and it's a respect thing with him. Um, but with Geoff, he just wasn't having anything that Geoff was throwing at him. And I mean, Geoff looked to me more like just like a really strong one-trick pony. You know, he had a couple straight shots. He was looking for some hooks, but nothing. I mean, I don't know how many punches Geoff landed and kicks, but it must not have been very much for how much that Wonder Boy was throwing with this karate. Just a great fight from Wonder Boy.
Mm-hmm. All right. I called this fight. I called it 100% down to the T. I said specifically, the thing that would be the biggest factor of this fight is lateral movement. Stephen Thompson's ability to get in, get out, and get paid. He exemplified his ability to use that back leg that Anthony Pettis so brilliantly attacked and compromised to get his victory. He used that lateral speed of his power leg to push off of with that front spear kick he throws, with that back fist jab he throws. He throws punches from such a side angle from karate stance that it's almost like a heavy boxing, like a classic boxing stance of just how little of the frame of body he actually gives to you to throw attacks at. That's one of the benefits of the karate stance is you're literally a smaller target. When you stand square, like you do in kickboxing, you're a big box. But when you're standing like that, you're a peg. You're harder to hit, and you can only hit flush on one side. I don't think Jeff maximized his damage in one area enough to do any difference. I think he didn't really have a solid game plan when it came to attacking Stephen Thompson's abilities. I think he was just trying to go for like a steady as she goes, wear him down type of game plan. But if you're not going to neutralize Stephen Thompson's tools, it's just not going to work. And as far as striking, we're looking at 80 landed from Jeff Neal, 171 landed from Stephen Thompson. And a lot of those attacks were the spear kick, those front punches. Just brilliance, pure brilliance from Stephen Thompson. It's exactly what he needed coming back after a bit of a ride on the bench. I believe he's had a mix of W's and L's in his past 5 fights. So that's just a good resounding W for him. Jeff Neal is a game opponent. He's a great fighter. I think he just needs to I'm not his coach. I'm sure his coaches have a game plan for him. If I were his coach, I would say maybe don't have such a diverse attack. Maybe focus on a general game plan. Maybe try to pick apart a specific part of his body. Because when you're dealing with a specialist like Stephen Thompson, who's such a flow fighter, if you get any of his mechanics out of whack, you have the chance of getting in his head and destroying his game plan. And I don't know how good of a fighter Stephen Thompson is without a game plan. Most of the time, he's just been on his victories. He's just been able to use it and showcase it and look phenomenal. Even in his L's, a lot of them are because somebody decided to have a very distinct notion of how to attack him, whether it was to attack the back leg or to take him down and try to press the submission game. If Jeff would have been more focused, he could have been the more talented fighter that night. But Stephen Thompson is a genius. The way he fights is brilliant. I really, really enjoy it. He's fun to watch. He kind of has like hints of Anderson Silva, or like he's kind of like what you wished Sage Northcutt would have been. You looked at Sage and you're like, oh, why can't you be more like your big brother, Stephen?
Yeah. I have noticed over the past couple fights, Wonder Boy's kind of lost his ability to finish.
He's lost a little bit of snap. I've noticed he's lost a
snap. Yeah. Guys used to run into his shots and go to sleep, and much like Lyoto, one of the most famous karate fighters in MMA. Towards the end, he wasn't able to put guys away, and that could have also been Geoff, kind of took some snap off of it. But usually when guys run into those shots like his straights, it'll put him away, or those, front kicks. So he's kind of going point fighter game plan, touch and go.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be interesting to see Wonder Boy's next fight. That's another guy who I really thought he was going to be champion, you know. Then the fight with T Wood and Kamaru, you know, he lost some of his steam.
Mhm.
But hey, man, I love me a Wonder Boy fight.
But let's also not forget, Machida fought well past his prime, adding an extra like 6 or 7 years to his career just for having the ability to be an in and out point fighter the way Stephen Thompson. So maybe Stephen Thompson will have a long, longevous career to look at because of that type of game plan. Who knows? Who knows? He did a great job not taking very much damage at all. I mean, it's hard to think that 80 strikes, with most of them being leg and body shots, that he took too much damage in that fight whatsoever. So, so let's get back to your boy, Michael Chandler. I believe he's got a fight coming up pretty soon, right?
Oh yeah.
I heard he got booked finally. Who's his dance partner?
Chandler, baby. He's going against Michael Hooker.
Is it
Daniel Hooker?
Dan Hooker, yeah. Dan Hooker. What do you think about that fight?
That's a rough one for me because for Michael Chandler, you know, Daniel Hooker, Dan Hooker's he's so tried and true. He's very durable, very well rounded. I think a few things that work for Chandler is explosiveness. Is going to be a huge asset against Hooker. Hooker's a Muay Thai fighter, and Chandler's had a lot of success against Muay Thai fighters because he is so small and compact. He comes in kind of Tyson style with so much power. I think that Dan Hooker, there's a lot of body there because he's so tall for Michael Chandler to wear it on his body and then go body to head. You know, wrestling, he could take down Dan Hooker at will. But, you know, knees, I think knees are going to be a problem for Michael Chandler because he drops his head like he does. And I just maybe knees, maybe low kicks will be a problem. And then the submission game will be a problem. But I think Michael Chandler can get on the inside around the punches and around the high kicks. Dan Hooker has a great high kick, but I don't think that's going to be a big problem for Chandler. It's mainly going to be the knees, short elbows when he comes in. But it's going to be a really exciting fight. You know, I wanted him to have a little bigger of a name. So if he didn't perform, it's like, hey, whatever, it's Justin Gaethje. But I mean, Hooker's no slouch, man.
Dan Hooker is I mean, he's a top 5, so I definitely or top 6. I think he's a 6th place. I mean, he's still that's a tall glass for Chandler. I'm not gonna lie, that's really not a good matchup for him or for Dan Hooker. This is one of those matchups where it's like, oh, somebody's gonna get their ass kicked come fight night. Either Dan Hooker is gonna put the tools to Chandler, or Chandler's gonna fuck him up. And if I'm being completely honest, from what I've seen from Chandler's wrestling and Dan Hooker's defense to wrestling, I think Dan Hooker's about to get fucked up. I mean, I could be totally wrong. I could be absolutely out of my mind by saying this, but I'm just going by what I've seen in film. Dan is explosive, but he's also a real angle fighter. He likes to try to get back sweep angles where he rotates back and left, back and right, tries to get you on an off balance. But that's not a good thing to do with the wrestler because you're going to get ankle picked. You know, when you do that, you really drag your front foot when you slide back in the way that you're supposed to. Because when you do any type of back angle movement, it's not so much of a step as it is like a step and a slide. And when you do that, man, you just leave that heel right out there for that dude to just num. Michael Chandler is the cookie monster of ankle picks. You look at his highlight reel and it's 60% ankle picking. This dude will get you, and then he uses the ankle pick to climb your body. So it's not like an ankle pick foot drag. It's like an ankle pick that turns into a single leg that he'll switch to a double, that he'll switch back to the single, high crotch you, and just angle you out, do whatever he wants to. He's bad. He's a bad dude. Like you said, the clinch is where Dan Hooker needs to do most of his work. If he wants to have success against Michael Chandler, he's going to need to keep him in the clinch as much as possible. But Michael Chandler's a wrestler. Why would you want to keep him in your clinch? He's just going to pick you up and drop you. Yeah, it doesn't look like a good fight for either one of them. Somebody's ass getting kicked that night for sure. I don't know.
When I look at Hooker's resume, there's not too many wrestlers that he's been able to beat. You know, he lost to Poirier by decision. and he got taken down a few times in that fight. He beat Paul Felder. He beat Iaquinta. He beat James Vick. He lost to Barboza. He knocked out Gilbert Burns, which is his biggest win back in 2018. Knocked out Jim Miller with knee. Knocked out Ross Pearson with knee. So I remember him as a guy with a great knee because he's so tall.
His plum clinch, way up. His clinch is real dangerous. His plum clinch is where he does most of his exasperation work from.
Yeah. But like you said, wrestling, man, I mean, Chandler should be able to get past that clinch and not even get clinched at all. And like you said, ankle pick, double leg, whatever it is, and grind him out and just pound him out. I can see Chandler pounding him out. That's one way, or I could see Hooker knocking him out.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Someone's ass is getting kicked that night. I don't think this is going to be a decision. I don't think it's going to be a pace fight. Someone's ass is going to the hospital after this fight. I definitely believe that 100%. So make sure you don't miss that one. But also on the main cards, we got Max Holloway versus Kevin Kattar on January 16th. And then January 23rd, we have Poirier and McGregor fighting. That's the consecutive Saturdays. There was supposed to be a Wednesday event, which was the Leon Edwards and Chimaev fight. But of course, as we know, that unfortunately got postponed. They're thinking about redoing the Wednesday or just splitting the fighters up between the two Saturdays. So we don't really know what's coming up in our future yet. It's all kind of murky, which means our next episode will probably be the best of 2020. We'll just do a compilation episode. We probably won't have a fight card yet. So it looks like we're just going to do the best of 2020 and then take a couple weeks off. What do you think about that, Don?
Yeah, baby.
I could use a break. That doesn't sound too bad. I mean, if there's no fights, there's no news. If there's no news, there's no need for us. But it looks like 2021 is going to be on the same pace as the end of 2020, where we're having fights every week. So don't worry. After the best of 2020 episode, we will come back. God willing, and the creek don't rise. Sure. We do plan on coming back and making sure we hit you with it. Don, you cool doing the best of 2020 for the next episode?
For sure, brother. For sure. It's just going to be awesome too with, McGregor coming back in 2021, and we'll finish off strong, and then we'll get some really good fights, next year.
God. If this were like a sitcom or like a Netflix show, dude, 2021 is the year to look forward to. We got John Jones moving up to heavyweight, fighting John Blachowicz in March. We got Israel Adesanya moving up to light heavyweight, or not John Blachowicz, excuse me, fighting Stipe Miocic in March. That's what the plan is. We got Israel Adesanya moving up to light heavyweight, wanting to fight Blachowicz. We got, what is going on? I truly think that we went through some type of alternate dimension several years ago. And this is just one of the few positive outcomes to come with it, is that we're finally seeing some of our seeds come to fruit. We have such good things to look forward to. I can't wait to talk about them. Anything else you want to say for tonight, Don?
No, man, just let's keep watching them. Let's keep calling the fights. And yeah, man, it's going to be an amazing season, amazing next year. And who knows? Maybe we'll see Greg Hardy take out John Jones, and then you'll be a hero.
Don, I'm the comedian. Stop doing my job. Saying funny shit now. One can only hope. It is 2021 soon, so who knows what type of bizarre adventures the next year has in store for us. And what you can expect from us, we're planning on doing some live fight companion watchers. Like, we'll be watching the fights alongside of you for a couple events. We'll try to work that on a technology level. I know we're still in that building process, but we've talked about that before. We want to be able to enjoy the fights with you as well. If only we find a way to just pirate the fights and put them live on Facebook. I can do that with our faces over it or something. We'll figure it out. But I just want to say thank you for tuning in for as long as you have. We have more coming up. Can't wait to get it out to you. Can't wait for these fights to come up. So many great things coming in 2021. Make sure you stay posted. Follow us on social medias. You can follow me at Chino Brah. That's ChinoBrah. That's on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all that good stuff. You can also find me on Oculus at Chino Brah if you're a VR user. I do have a couple comedy shows I do, as well as I'm probably going to be starting some type of podcast on that because it's just able to. We're just figuring out the ability for that. But make sure you check me out on all social media platforms. Don, where can our audience find you?
You guys can find me at dstoner_LWJJ on Instagram, Facebook at Don Stoner. Always like seeing your guys' comments and let your friends know about the show. And yeah, just always like seeing your guys' predictions and your comments about the fights. It's really cool to see that, you know, we have like a community now that we're building of hardcore fans. So thank you so much, guys.
And that's what this is. This is a podcast for the actual fans of MMA. I've noticed that people who are casual fans of fighting or just kind of watch it and don't really know what's going on, they don't really understand our podcast because we do kind of dig deeper. But if you're like a real fight fan, I'm sure that you find some type of interest in the words that we say. I'm sure you even have an opinion. Feel free to comment, post, follow along. We got great listeners like the one who posted earlier. What was his name again, Don?
Steven.
We got Steven. We got my buddy Mark Baptiste. We got my buddy Cody Mendoza. You know, some diehard MMA fans that really like to hear what we have to say. We're really happy to have you guys listening to us. So make sure you keep tuning in. Also, if you have UFC Fight Pass, check out Adam Hunter's new special. He's a comedian who also does the MMA Roasted podcast, a buddy of mine. He released his comedy special through the UFC Fight Pass because he's pretty much the UFC's comedian. Here's what I see happening. Joe Rogan doing commentary, eventually can't do the job anymore because, you know, whatever, he's too rich or too old. And then Adam Hunter takes his job, and then I take Adam Hunter's job. And that's how it's going to work. when he gets paid enough and becomes Joe Rogan, doesn't need it anymore, I would like him to pass the torch to me. So we'll see how it goes. But guys,
that guy's so funny. There's a video of him on the internet where he roasted somebody's wedding, where he was the guy saying the vows and whatever, and he almost got in a fight with one of the brother-in-laws because he started roasting the brother-in-law. Dude, super hilarious. You know, he's so funny, and so I'm gonna go watch his show on Fight Pass for sure.
Oh yeah, he's great. We actually booked him out on Maui for a tour for a little while too, and just as professional and as talented as they come. Just a real salty dog, somebody who knows the craft so well inside and out. It's kind of very similar to watching one of the top tier martial artists at work, where you're just like, damn, will I ever be that good? And it's like, yes, if you practice every day, all day. That's pretty much what it is. So thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great week. Enjoy the new year. Enjoy the time in between. Join us next week for the best of 2020, so we can recap some of our favorite moments. I'll make sure I get the information ahead of time so we can actually do some screen share videos too, so we can show you our favorite clips and stuff. We'll try to make it look pretty for you. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Enjoy your time off, and as always, aloha.